What if I told you that the most profound secrets of existence were written down thousands of years ago, and that these principles have been hidden in plain sight, whispered through the centuries by those who understood their transformative power? Welcome back to Eternal Light Academy. I am your guide on this journey into the depths of cosmic wisdom. Today, we unveil the 7 Hermetic principles, ancient keys that unlock the very architecture of reality itself. These are not merely philosophical concepts. They are the operational manual of the universe, a roadmap to understanding your place within the cosmic dance of creation. These principles originate from the teachings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great sage who bridged the wisdom of ancient Egypt with the philosophical traditions that would later shape Western esotericism. The core of his wisdom was inscribed on what became known as the Emerald Tablet, containing the famous axiom, "As above, so below. As below, so above." But why should these ancient teachings matter to you now, in this modern age? Because once you truly understand and internalize these 7 principles, you will never see reality the same way again. The veil between the visible and invisible worlds will thin. Synchronicities will increase in your life. Your ability to consciously co-create your experience will expand exponentially. This is not hyperbole. This is the testimony of countless seekers throughout history who have walked this path before you. Before we begin this exploration, I invite you to approach these teachings with both an open mind and a discerning heart. Not as abstract concepts to be intellectually catalogued, but as living keys to be tested in the laboratory of your own experience. Let us now explore each of the 7 Hermetic principles in depth, revealing their hidden implications and practical applications for your spiritual awakening. Principle 1. Mentalism. The all is mind, the universe is mental. This first principle might be the most profound and far-reaching of all Hermetic axioms. It states that the fundamental nature of reality is consciousness itself. The entire universe, in all its infinite complexity, exists within the mind of what the Hermeticists called the All. But what does this truly mean for your understanding of reality? It means that thought is the ultimate creative force in the universe. Physical reality is not the primary substance, but rather a manifestation, a crystallization of thought energy into form. The material world you experience through your senses is actually a thought form existing within a greater cosmic mind. When you truly grasp this principle, you begin to understand why your thoughts and beliefs so powerfully shape your experience. You aren't just perceiving reality, you are actively participating in its creation through the lens of your consciousness. This explains why 2 people can experience the same event so differently. Their mental frameworks, their beliefs, expectations, and past conditioning literally filter and shape their perceptions into distinct experienced realities. The principle of mentalism also explains the mechanism behind visualization practices, affirmations, and the so-called law of attraction. These aren't merely psychological tricks, but expressions of the mental nature of the universe. This principle invites you to witness your thoughts with greater awareness. Which thought patterns are you unconsciously projecting onto your experience? What reality are you mentally constructing moment by moment? The mystics of all traditions have pointed to this truth. Master your mind, and you begin to master your reality. Principle 2. Correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. This second principle might be the most widely quoted of all Hermetic axioms, yet its profound implications are often overlooked. The principle of correspondence reveals that there is a direct relationship between all planes of existence, between the microcosm and the macrocosm. Patterns repeat themselves across different scales and dimensions of reality. Consider how an atom mirrors a solar system, how the branching patterns of lightning resemble the branching of rivers from above, which in turn resemble the branching of veins in your body or the neural networks in your brain. This principle explains why ancient traditions place such importance on studying natural patterns. The same mathematical ratios, like the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence, appear repeatedly throughout nature, from the spiral of galaxies to the spiral of a seashell. The correspondence between your energetic centers, the chakras, and the 7 classical planets is another expression of this principle. Your physical body is a microcosm that reflects the macrocosmic order. But this principle goes beyond physical analogies. It reveals that your inner world corresponds to your outer circumstances. The conflicts you face externally mirror your internal states. The harmony you create within ripples outward to affect your external reality. This is why genuine spiritual work always involves inner transformation. By changing yourself, you change your world, not through magical thinking, but through the natural operation of cosmic correspondence. When you understand this principle deeply, you recognize that every part contains information about the whole. A drop of water contains the same elements as the ocean. A cell contains the genetic blueprint for the entire organism. This understanding was the foundation of ancient divination systems. By observing one pattern, whether in the stars, in scattered yarrow stalks, or in the flight of birds, the sage could perceive corresponding patterns unfolding in human affairs. The principle of correspondence invites you to become a student of patterns, to look for the reflections between different levels of your experience, and to recognize how changing one level inevitably affects all others. Principle 3. Vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. The third Hermetic principle reveals that nothing in the universe is truly solid or stationary. At the most fundamental level, everything is energy in motion, everything vibrates. Modern quantum physics has validated this ancient understanding. What appears as solid matter is actually mostly empty space, filled with vibrating energy fields. The only difference between one form of matter and another is the rate and pattern of vibration. Consider how different frequencies of light create different colors, or how different frequencies of sound create different tones. Similarly, different states of consciousness, from deep meditation to anxious thinking, operate at different vibratory rates. This principle explains why your emotional state is quite literally contagious. Emotions are energy in motion, emotion, operating at specific frequencies that can be felt by those around you. When you enter a room where conflict has just occurred, you can sense the heavy vibration without being told what happened. The practical application of this principle is profound. By consciously working with your own vibrational state through meditation, sound, movement, or focused intention, you can shift your consciousness and even affect your physical well-being. Ancient traditions understood this through the science of mantra and sacred sound. Specific vibrations can reorganize energy patterns in your subtle and physical bodies. This isn't mystical supposition. It's the practical application of vibrational science. In your daily life, this principle invites you to become aware of the vibrational quality of your thoughts, your words, the music you listen to, the environments you inhabit, and the people you surround yourself with. All of these factors are constantly influencing your own vibrational state. By consciously choosing higher vibrational states through gratitude, compassion, creative expression, or connection with nature, you begin to resonate with corresponding experiences and opportunities. This principle reveals why protecting your energetic field is not spiritual superstition, but practical wisdom in a universe where everything is vibrating energy in constant interaction. Principle 4. Polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. The fourth Hermetic principle might be the most challenging to fully grasp. Yet it holds the key to transcending many of the apparent contradictions you encounter in both spiritual teachings and daily life. Consider temperature. Hot and cold appear to be opposites, but they're actually varying degrees of the same phenomenon, thermal energy. There is no absolute point where hot begins and cold ends. They are relative positions on a single spectrum. The same applies to seemingly opposed concepts like light and darkness, love and fear, or creation and destruction. This principle reveals why you often swing between emotional extremes. When you push too far in one direction, the pendulum naturally swings toward the opposite pole. Understanding polarity gives you the power to transmute negative states into positive ones, not by fighting against the negative, but by consciously moving along the spectrum toward its opposite pole. For example, instead of trying to eliminate fear, which often creates resistance that amplifies the fear, you can focus on moving gradually toward its opposite, courage or love. This mental alchemy is possible because the opposites are connected along the same spectrum. The principle of polarity also explains the paradoxical nature of spiritual truths. Eastern traditions speak of non-duality, the transcendence of all opposites, while simultaneously giving practices that work with polarized energies like yin and yang. Rather than seeing these approaches as contradictory, the principle of polarity shows how they represent different perspectives on the same reality. The opposites both exist and are reconciled at a higher level of understanding. In your spiritual practice, this principle invites you to find the reconciliation point between seeming opposites, between surrender and will, between discipline and spontaneity, between individual development and selfless service. By understanding that opposites are connected, you gain the mental flexibility to navigate paradox and to transmute challenging states through the conscious direction of your attention along the spectrum of polarity. Principle 5. Rhythm. Everything flows, out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. The fifth Hermetic principle reveals that all things move in cyclic patterns. Nothing proceeds in a straight line forever. What rises must eventually fall, only to rise again. You can observe this principle in the rhythms of nature, day and night, the lunar cycle, the changing seasons. You experience it in the rhythms of your body, your heartbeat, your breath, your circadian cycles. The crucial insight of this principle is that the degree of the swing in one direction determines the swing in the opposite direction. This explains why periods of intense activity are often followed by equal periods of fatigue or inertia. This principle operates not just in individual lives, but in collective experience, in economic cycles, in the rise and fall of civilizations, in the pendulum swing between different cultural values from one generation to the next. Understanding rhythm gives you the wisdom to work with these natural cycles rather than fighting against them. When you recognize that you're in a downward phase of a cycle, you can conserve energy and prepare for the inevitable upward swing. When you're in an upward phase, you can make the most of it while preparing for the eventual shift. Advanced spiritual practitioners learn to find the center point of the pendulum, the place of balance where they can observe the rhythms without being completely swept away by them. This doesn't mean escaping the rhythm entirely, which is impossible, but rather navigating it with greater awareness. The practical application of this principle involves timing your actions in harmony with the natural rhythms affecting you. It also involves setting up positive momentum during upward cycles that can help minimize the depth of downward swings. Most importantly, the principle of rhythm reminds you that this too shall pass. Whatever state you're experiencing, whether joyful or painful, is subject to the law of rhythm and will eventually transform into its opposite. This understanding breeds both patience during difficult phases and gratitude during fortunate ones, knowing that all conditions are temporary expressions of cosmic rhythm. Principle 6. Cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. The sixth Hermetic principle states that nothing happens by chance or outside the boundary of natural law. Every action generates a specific reaction. Every effect can be traced to a cause. What makes this principle particularly profound is the recognition that causation operates on multiple planes: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. An effect manifesting on the physical plane may have its cause on a mental or spiritual level. This explains why material solutions often fail to address problems with non-material causes. A health issue manifesting physically might have its root cause in emotional patterns or mental beliefs. Understanding the law of cause and effect empowers you to become more conscious of the causes you set in motion through your choices, knowing they will inevitably produce corresponding effects. This principle is related to what Eastern traditions call karma, not as some cosmic punishment system, but as the natural operation of cause and effect across all dimensions of experience, including across time. By studying the effects in your life, you can gain insight into the causes you've previously set in motion, consciously or unconsciously. This self-reflection allows you to make different choices that will generate different results. The Hermetic understanding of cause and effect also reveals why spiritual practices like meditation, prayer, or energy work can produce tangible results in the material world. By working on causal levels, on mental and spiritual planes, you can influence the effects that eventually manifest in your physical experience. Advanced practitioners develop the ability to trace complex chains of causation, seeing how seemingly unrelated events connect through causative links. This expanded awareness allows them to work more consciously with causal forces rather than merely reacting to effects. The principle of cause and effect invites you to take greater responsibility for your reality as a causal agent, while simultaneously developing compassion for others by recognizing the complex web of causes that shape their behavior and circumstances. Rather than seeing yourself as a victim of random events, you begin to recognize yourself as a participant in a magnificent cosmic dance of cause and effect, with the power to set new causes in motion through your conscious choices. Principle 7. Gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. The seventh Hermetic principle is perhaps the most misunderstood, yet it reveals a fundamental dynamic that operates throughout all dimensions of existence. The principle of gender does not merely refer to biological sex, but to complementary creative energies that exist within all things, often described as masculine and feminine, but equally accurate to call them active and receptive, projective and receptive, or yang and yin. These complementary energies exist not just in human beings, but in all of creation, in atoms with their protons and electrons, in the relationship between the sun and the moon, in the dynamics of day and night. You can observe these complementary energies in the different functions of the left and right hemispheres of your brain. The left associated with logical, linear thinking, traditionally associated with masculine energy, and the right with intuitive, holistic awareness, traditionally associated with feminine energy. Every person, regardless of biological sex or gender identity, contains both masculine and feminine energies. Spiritual development involves bringing these internal energies into conscious balance and harmony. The principle of gender reveals the mechanics of all creation. Nothing can be created without the interaction of these two forces, the active principle that initiates and the receptive principle that gives form. This applies to artistic creation, to the generation of ideas, to manifestation practices, and to the creation of life itself. In your mental life, you experience both the receptive aspect of mind that receives impressions and the active aspect that acts upon them. Real creativity emerges when these two aspects work in harmony. Ancient traditions honored this principle through symbols of sacred union, representations of complementary forces coming together to generate a third force or new creation. This was never merely about physical procreation, but about the cosmic creative principle that operates on all planes of existence. Understanding the principle of gender invites you to recognize which energy might be dominant or underdeveloped in different areas of your life. Are you all action without receptivity, all intuition without implementation? The integration of these complementary forces is essential for wholeness and effective creation. As we come full circle in our exploration, you can now see how these 7 Hermetic principles are not separate laws, but aspects of a single unified understanding. Each principle interacts with and supports all others in an elegant cosmic symphony. The principle of mentalism establishes the mental foundation of reality. The principle of correspondence shows the relationships between different levels of this mental reality. The principle of vibration reveals the dynamic nature of the mental universe. The principle of polarity demonstrates the spectrum of possible mental states. The principle of rhythm shows how these states naturally flow in cycles. The principle of cause and effect reveals how mental causes generate corresponding effects. And the principle of gender explains the creative process through which new manifestations emerge. These principles aren't unique to the Hermetic tradition. You'll find them echoed in the Vedic teachings of India, in Taoist philosophy, in indigenous wisdom traditions, and even in the latest findings of quantum physics and systems theory. The true value of these principles isn't in their intellectual understanding, but in their practical application. I invite you to take one principle each week and observe how it operates in your life. Notice the mental nature of your reality. Observe the correspondences between your inner and outer experiences. Become aware of the vibrational states you occupy. Work consciously with polarity to transmute negative states. Flow with natural rhythms rather than fighting them. Recognize the chains of cause and effect you set in motion. Balance the masculine and feminine energies within yourself. These 7 keys unlock doors to understanding that will transform not just your spiritual practice, but every aspect of your life, your relationships, your work, your health, and your creative expression. As the Emerald Tablet proclaims, what is below is like that which is above, and what is above is like that which is below, to accomplish the miracles of the one thing. If this exploration has resonated with you, I invite you to delve deeper in the next video, where we'll examine practical techniques for applying these principles in your daily spiritual practice. Until next time, may the eternal light of wisdom guide your path.